Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Box Score Sports YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ryan, and on this clip, we are going to continue our preview of every single team in the NBA going into this season. So we're going to talk today in this clip about the Atlanta Hawks. Let us know down in the comments section below what your thoughts are on the Atlanta Hawks. What are some of your predictions? Clint, let's get into this. So last season, the Hawks, they finished 40-42. They re-signed Dyson Daniel. They added Alexander Walker, Kennard, and Porzingis. And they lost Capella, Levert, Terrence Mann, Niang, and Nance Jr., just some of the names. Okay, Clint, going into this season, what do you think is the biggest strength for the Hawks, or what is it that you're most looking forward to?
Their size. Again, we're going to assume health when we talk about these teams, but their size, obviously outside of Trae Young or Luke Kennard at the guard, they have a lot of ability to switch and play different ways, whether Porzingis is in or whether Kongwu is in. Between Jalen Johnson, Ricochet, Daniels, Alexander Walker, like that's a really solid ability to play your 2 through your 4 and switch everything up while still having some shooting. I mean, Ricochet kind of unknown, and Dyson Daniels not really there yet. But I really love their guard forward size 2 through 4.
Yeah, I agree. I have that down as well. I think they play good defense because of that. They're just so long. And I think if you're going to look at any roster that Trae Young has been a part of, this is like the perfect roster that you want to surround him with. A lot of long guards like Walker, great addition. He's a long guard. Daniels, you already mentioned Ricochet and Johnson and Porzingis, and Okongwu coming off the bench. So yeah, I think that's a huge strength for the Hawks is just having that roster built around Trae Young with like long athletic defenders and even hypothetical defenders because we still got to learn about like Ricochet.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Like if you're going to have Trae Young on your team, or even if you're going to play Luke Kennard in lineups, this is what you need around him to negate the weak point guard defense, which point guard defense is the most important in the modern NBA. But if you can keep Trae Young and his passing on the floor and kind of negate that with the size around it, that's the best recipe for success for them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, what's your biggest weakness for the Hawks going into this season?
I think it's going to come down to Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
His shooting had kind of tailed off. Usually, shooting isn't like the older you get, you suddenly can't shoot. So
Right.
maybe it's just a down year. But I think a weakness is just, will he commit to maybe sharing it with Jalen Johnson more? Like Trae Young is not an off ball. We've talked about this with, there's several guards that we kind of compare to Steph Curry, but they're not because Steph Curry is fine to go off ball and run
Right.
around 25 screens. Dame wasn't willing to do it. Trae Young hasn't been to. James Harden, similar thing. So I think a weakness is it could get a little stagnant and they don't have a lot of playmaking outside of Trae Young. Jalen Johnson shows it, but we don't know if that was like a flash in the pan. So the Trae Young ball movement creation could be a struggle, especially against a really good defensive team.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. He seems to be, it's funny, if you look at his like year-to-year stats, like it's like every other year he shoots 36, 37% from three, and then the next year he'll shoot like 34% from three. So this would be the year if the pattern continues where he would shoot about 37% from three, which you think he's a better shooter than that, but anyway, but he always has like last 3 years double digits assists. So he's a good playmaker, but you're right, without him, is there going to be somebody else that will move that ball if he's not on the court? Now, and sort of with the Trae Young weakness, I just have his defense in particular. that's the thing is you're always going to kind of be 4-on-5 on the defensive side of the ball. I think the roster's really set up nicely around Trae Young, but it's 4-on-5. Without Trae Young last year, their defensive rating was 109.8. With him, it was 117.2. So when he was on the court, he was very much a liability on defense. And even though they had some of these players on the court, I think Johnson was hurt most of the year last year. And they didn't have Porzingis, obviously. But with some of these people on the court, it didn't really mask the weakness of Trey's defense last year. So you're kind of going in hoping that what they did will mask it better. But until we know for sure it's a weakness for me going into the season.
Yeah, for sure. He just has to put some effort.
Yeah.
Obviously you're not going to expect someone of that size to just turn into a defensive stopper. But if he can fight over screens, put a little more effort into it to make it at least passable.
Yeah, and I think like last year he did show the willingness to have a little bit of effort on that side of the ball, but like the problem is he's 5'11", and he's guarding guys who are 6'6". It's like that's almost impossible to do, like for someone who's 5'11". No matter how on top of it you are, they'll look down and they will barely see you. So it's just that's just his size. So it's always something he's going to have to work against because he can't get taller. So that's something he can't change. So contrary to popular belief, you cannot get taller.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your biggest question for the Hawks going into the season?
I think, again, for me, it centers around Trae Young. He's up for an extension. So if this doesn't work this year to whatever degree the Hawks view as success we can get to, are you going to keep extending that, committing a max to him, and continue that long term? Because he is one of those players where you have to build a team a certain way. So they've, to the best of a lot of ability, especially if Ricochet turns out to be something. But even if you took Ricochet out and you're starting Daniels, Alexander Walker, Jalen Johnson, and Porzingis, that's probably what you want. So if it doesn't work this year with it, what is their commitment level? It's hard because he's really popular in Atlanta. He's kind of the face of the franchise. It's hard to move off those guys without, something blowing up in your face and the team just, winning 20-something games, which is not going to happen here. So do they commit to it long term? And how does that affect their going forward, the upside of this team?
Yeah, I really like that one because it would be kind of interesting, like to see if it doesn't work, if they're that committed to Trey or they're ready to move on from him. Yeah, I think that's a really good one. I like that question a lot. My big question is just what are they going to get out of Porzingis? Always injury problems with him. I think he's kind of a linchpin and how successful this defense can be with Trae Young on the court because he's 7'3" and he's long and he's going to be your main rim protector. Also, he's going to be able to spread the court for you too, which makes it kind of like you can play a 5-out offense. So the versatility with Porzingis on the court is going to be a massive advantage for the Hawks. So it's just like, what are we going to get out of him? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be able to stay healthy? It's been something he struggled with, and I think depending on how that question is answered is how much success the Hawks is going to have.
Yeah, he's, obviously when he played for the Celtics, they were basically unbeatable.
Right.
They still won without him. I mean, he missed, portions of that, but in this case, they're going to need him to reach their upper level for this season.
Correct. What is success for you for the Hawks this season? What would mean success for the Hawks for you?
I think for the Hawks, it has to be at least a second round appearance. When you kind of, I don't want to say go in because they still have moves that they can make. Thank you, New Orleans Pelicans.
Yes.
But they still have moves they can make. But you put this team together, you're in a weakened Eastern Conference. And I think if you do this and you want to project a future out with Trae Young, with some of these young guys, this year you got to get out of the first. You got to get out of the first round. Otherwise, with other guys coming back, we talked about, or moves that could be made, that would be a setback. So I think it's got to be at least a second round appearance.
I 100% agree with you. I think because and usually I'm like, I think this is a really good team and they could have a lot of wins in the regular season. And like, if you're a top 4 seed, like if you got in the first round, like you're playing the Heat or, one of those fringe teams that barely make the playoffs, or the, Pistons. I love Pistons, but even if you're playing the Pistons, it's like, you got to get to second round of the playoffs, because how weak the conference is. It's just so weak. You should be able to find a first round matchup that favors you and possibly even win that series. And then if you do that, you're going to be more comfortable with what you can build moving forward, because not only do they have all that assets, but a lot of these guys are still young, like Risha Shea, Johnson. So there's and Daniel. So there's still a lot of development that can happen there. So if you get into the second round, you put yourself in a really good mindset to be like, okay, let's see what happens now next year if we added a couple more pieces. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Prediction?
I have the Hawks as a playoff team.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay. Anything else for the Hawks?
No, you can tune into when we do our prediction one to see how high I have the Hawks, but I think they're a good team this year.
Yeah. So if you're listening right now, me and Clint are going to do just simply a podcast on the predictions. But we have and are doing every single NBA team individually, which I'll mention that on the podcast. So thanks, guys, for watching. Let us know again what or how you feel about the Hawks going into the season, some of your predictions. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.